Hey everybody, this is Chris, and you got it, Tim?
Oh, it's
It beat twice, so I didn't know it started. Go ahead.
This is not Chris. This is Tim. That was Chris. And today's show is One World Mind Control, Astral Projection, and Synchronicity. And this is getting into a lot of interesting things that we were going in this direction with Anthony. But Chris came up with a really beautiful presentation to go over these topics.
Yeah, so today we're going to do this show, like Tim said, and it's going to be on a lot of...
Let me see what's going on here. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it's going to be on a lot of deep things that is tied into astral projection, synchronicity, mind control, Cern, spirituality, and we're going to have some Bible verses in here too. And we just want you to know that we're followers of Jesus Christ, and we woke up to the one world system and understand how the conscious is controlled by symbols and words, numbers. It's heavily controlled by entertainment, news, music industry. And in some of our past shows, we've talked about sound and frequencies and how it affects us. And in the end, sounds and vibrations and frequency will play a key role in this realm when the Antichrist is revealed and a Terran and space and time is created. So our goal is to wake people up to all the things that are around us, and we do quite a bit of research to put these things together, because Cern and the physics, the quantum entanglement, all those things are very complex things to understand for the average person that's never heard about it. But today I hope that we can make it simple for you to understand. We got lots of things to cover. I'm really glad that Tim's here, and we can hammer these things out and try to help make sense of a lot of these things in ancient history, the Bible, and things that are all around us. So this is Tim's logo, and I'll put links to his Facebook. He has a lot. He puts everything that we do on his Facebook, and he is ETMN with End Times Matrix News. And there's also going to be links below about his ebook. It'll be on his Facebook that he's working on. And we're also going to be working on other ebooks too in the future. It's going to be a lot of interesting collaborations of information together. That's a lot of research and just get to the bottom line with pictures and everything. They're going to be really good books. But Tim's working on Cernunos's box, and it's going to be tied to the shows that we did with Anthony, and a lot of really good information. And then this is my channel, End Time Views, and it's just kind of like a merge channel with End Times Matrix News. We're going to be working together and doing a lot of things. So I was going to put a lot of things at the end of this video, but I thought that the Lord touched my heart to kind of put this at the beginning, and it's Matthew 24:25. See, I have told you ahead of time. And this is what Jesus said about the coming tribulation. Not all Bibles have correct translations, and it can be very confusing, but in the Bible, it's very interesting. I think this has to do with now. And at the center of the garden, he placed a tree of life and also a tree of conscience, giving knowledge of good and bad. And so, interestingly enough, there's two trees. It's at the center of garden. One's the tree of life, and one of the is the tree of conscience. In Hebrew, knowledge means conscious. And we know in the Bible that Satan wanted us to be like gods, and I do believe in the end times it's going to kind of be like the same thing. It's tied to everything that's going on with the synchrotrons and DNA and things that we're going to get into here. But taking the fruit of consciousness in Hebrew is knowledge. I've already said that, but sorry, Tim, I think I kind of got thrown off there at the beginning. I don't know what happened there, but
no, I think we just had the channel playing over itself for a second, and then we cut it out, so everything's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know what happened, but now I think we're okay here. But And I didn't mean to cut in on you because I know that you were talking and then I didn't know what happened. I thought that you had to get to leave or something for a second.
Oh no,
but
I think no, it was just a technical glitch. It's fixed. Everything's fine. This whole what we're doing right now is just perfect.
Okay. So you just jump in there anytime then, and we'll go on with this discussion. But we've done a lot of shows on key ley lines, electromagnetic energy, the Kabbalah, the planets, the celestial bodies that ancient history worshipped, and the caducees of Thoth, and so this is just kind of like a picture showing the brain, and the two energies are kind of like Birkeland currents. And a little later, I'm going to get to the point of how much energy we have in our bodies, and how much energy is out there in the universe, and how these things can connect with each other as from different points of views.
Those are also your 88s.
Yeah. Yeah, the Birkeland currents are, we've talked about that before too with H plus and DNA. We can't get into all that today, but we did a show talking about AI and H plus and what it means in ancient history, how it's tied to the Birkeland currents and DNA. And this is really all about DNA in the end times, but the Birkeland currents are electrical currents that power the aurora on Earth and other planets and carry out 1 million amps. Nikola Tesla, if you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of like the Janus thing that we did before with the fire in the middle of the pyramid and the energy. Mm-hmm. And so we're just going to barely touch on astral projection, and then it can tie into things. But astral projection in history was tied to Order of the Golden Dawn, a magical organization, and Aleister Crowley. Then a lot of people have heard about him. But astral projection is kind of tied into this, and you can go back. These things all come from ancient history, from the Book of Thoth, and also like the Book of the Dead, alchemy. All those things are tied to the mind. Mm-hmm. So astral projection or astral travel is an interpretation of out-of-body experience that assumes the existence of an astral body, separate from the physical body and capable of traveling outside of it. The psychologist Carl Jung coined the term synchronicity. Synchronicity is the coming together of inner and outer events in the way that cannot be explained by cause and effect, and that is meaningful to the observer. Carl Jung. This is Carl Jung, and this is kind of a map of his.
Freud was very mad with Carl because he wouldn't keep the Freudian theory intact. Carl Jung was his little disciple who went his own way. And Carl went to the basically the Far East to get a lot of his spiritual material into his psychology of the mind, which is Jungian psychology, which is very big with the New Agers and with all the Illuminati cabal and all that kind of stuff. So he's very much in vogue for that group.
Yeah, can you imagine seeing him today? Wow. With Pauli and Einstein and Tesla all together? That would just be something.
It'd be really interesting. I mean, we know Tesla had the inspired from the other side of the veil. I did my own little research on the Coral Gables phenomenon with the building of the structures in Coral Gable, Florida, based off the ley lines by that one man who did that. And he had a medium. When his mother was pregnant with him, she went to a psychic, and she said that he's the first New Atlantean in this continent, and you always got the occult involved with all these inspirations that have to do with this getting in contact with the other side of the veil.
Yeah. just keep in mind, we're going to kind of tie those things in so people understand the big picture of all of that with man and, versus, the true God, and then doing astral projection, talking to entities to gather information and to build things like Cern, and just connecting to the outside world. And this hopefully will build a picture for that. And just keep in mind synchronicity and quantum entanglement. And there's different types of ways that we can view synchronicity. This was just a picture of what Jung had here on the on synchronicity. Here's an example. This person's my mother, my wife's father were born in 1947. My sister's parents' anniversary is April 7th, 47. My wife's twin siblings were born on April 7th. Our firstborn child, you guessed it, April 7th. So I know there's many people that their whole family's born in the same month, and that's interesting. And then here's one person's quote. The TV was on, I was reading a book, and the TV said exactly what I read. And it was one sentence. And very interesting. And there's another one, 5 people that I knew that knew each other read the same Bible verse the same day, and they shared it, and eventually they understood that this is kind of amazing synchronicity. They all shared the same verse. And then there was another one, a family of twins all born on the same day, the mother and her sister, and then she had twins. They were born on the same day. She had another set of twins. They were born on the same day. And later on, when those twins had twins, they were born on the same day too. So that's just crazy, Some crazy synchronicities there.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Nicholson, this is another way of explaining it. He has a channel, and I put his link below. He's a very unique individual who can calculate synchronicities of times and events to the orbit and speed of Saturn. So he talks about the DC earthquake and the date it was on, the time that was on, and he explains the numbers. And what it is a mirror effect of the number. And these combinations, they tie into 1776, which was the birth of the Peruvian Illuminati, and also to 969, and the speed of Saturn, which is quite interesting. So you can see that link below. He tied it in here with the blood moon and the calculation. It's just phenomenal, how these things, help you to realize the world around us, the events that happen around us, and how it ties into the synchronicity to Saturn. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I think the mirror effect is one of these concepts that people are really interested in, how the eye works with something comes in the eye and then gets refracted back in the opposite back of the eye, and up and down, kind of thing, just like how a camera works and just like how Saturn works, where you have the oculus and you got the camera set up, but you get the negative of what you're taking a picture of. And so it often comes out opposite, and then it gets reversed so that you have the correct, photo. So that's kind of what people are looking at. If you got 1, 2, 3 coming from one direction, then you're going to have 1, 2, 3 going out from the other direction, or the mirror opposite of it. And so it's interesting. It's interesting concepts.
Yeah. It was interesting too. This slide reminded me that the other day I was watching a video on my phone, and I got a call at 3:22. Then when I go back to the video, I noticed that it stopped at 3:22. And I thought that was a synchronicity. That's just really crazy, but
But I know, I also know if I'm going, my brain has lots of filters, and if I learn what to say, I'm looking for to buy a pink VW Beetle. All of a sudden, I'll start noticing them from all over the place because my eye is already filtering for pink VW Beetles. It'll start seeing them all around. And so we have tons of filters. And I think this is what's interesting about the spiritual side with the Holy Spirit, is the more you keep your eyes on Jesus, the more you tune to him, the more he can filter things to you to where you can hear him. You know, a lot of people say that God speaks to us all the time, all day long. We just don't hear and we don't see. And it's because our filters are not turned on to that aspect. And so, yeah, it's amazing what we shut out in the real world and what we take in. And so when you have verses like your heart is, what's the verse about the heart being where your treasure is where your heart is, that kind of thing. Whatever you value the most, you're tuned into, kind of a thing. So if you love Jesus and you love God, you're tuned into him more. If you love this world, you're tuned into this world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because I guess that there are, you know, different energies, you know, different spiritual energies. We have a spiritual world all around us that we can't see. And I guess, and, you know, I guess with Cern and all of these physiologists, scientists, they describe antimatter we cannot see around us. And we'll get into some real interesting stuff with that too. If you haven't heard of Dick Crane, he was a recipient of President Ronald Reagan's National Medal of Science for the first measurement of the magnetic moment and spin of free electrons and positrons. He was also noted for proving the existence of neutrinos. The first synchrotron to use the racetrack design with straight sections, a 300 MeV electron synchrotron at University of Michigan in 1949. And this was designed by Dick Crane. He also had a radio station in his home, or like a little amateur one, you know.
I just find the whole thing, the timings of what's interesting to me, because this part of my book is the 1947 Roswell stuff, the post-World War II UN founding, the Israel as a nation in 48. Then we got synchrotrons being developed, and, you know, it's like, wow, this is just something so weird about the material that came out of Operation Paperclip and the Nazis, and the diffusion of this information through the scientific communities. And then you start seeing all this stuff developing. Yeah,
and also Pluto coming in to, you know, they say the discovery of that in 1930. And I think that, you know, and I guess it went in Capricorn in 2008 when Obama became president. They do everything with alignments, everything that they do.
Yeah, they definitely like to tune into whatever whatever their spirit guides are telling them to tune into, and that's why they use these planets and stuff for different energies.
Yeah. It's hard to wrap your mind around it, but then once you study it more and you understand it more and you filter through the disinformation, you get to understand it a little bit better. It comes together eventually. This was just a picture of the synchrotron that he built and how it looks. And here's another synchrotron, a super collider that was in Texas in Waxahachie, and this was George Bush. There's a link that I'll put below, or I think I already did, where he talks about this super collider. And anyway, that one was in Waxahachie, Texas. This is a rare video that someone found, and actually,
yeah, I haven't seen that one. No,
I'll have to send it to you, but I think I'm pretty sure I put it below. This is a picture of the largest synchrotron type accelerator. Is 27 kilometers, 17 miles circumference, Large Hadron Collider near Geneva. It was built in 2008. Another 2008 Synchronicity with Pluto and Obama there, in the European Organization for Nuclear Research. This is the proton synchrotron, and it is underneath. It's underneath this circle here. You know, you can. This is just the top, and this is the bottom. This is where the booster is, but that is where it is, and it's actually centered in the center. So just keep that in mind.
I just find it interesting, that picture there, that it basically reminds me of the automobile flywheel, alternators, timing belts, all hooked up to spin. And it's like, this technology has been around forever. These concepts of the circles and the pulleys and the rotation. See, they've always used it, but we haven't ever used it at the level of subatomic, in the sense of that's what Cern is. So you can see the evolution of technologies, just looking at these things, that these concepts were there, but the technology had not caught up to the concepts. And now we're at the subatomic. What's the most recent one? The 5-pointed one that they found at Cern? What did they call it? The pentacork or something like that. But you know, we've gone over gluons and muons and all those things. And it's just interesting. I like to look back at this. Looks like an old, you can look at it as the grist mill with the paddle wheels in the water, you know, to turn it and to generate. So there's different ways of looking at it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are some good thoughts on that. Here's just another picture, just showing how it's underneath here. It's in the center right here. This is called the north area. Interesting there. A synchrotron is a particle type of cyclic particle accelerator atom smasher, descended from the cyclotron, in which the guiding magnetic field bending the particles into a closed path is time-dependent, being synchronized to a particle beam of increasing kinetic energy. So this all has to do, I mean, they already do have light bending technology in the military, and which is quite fascinating. And so this is kind of like, you know, this has to do with laser lights and, you know, smashing particles, colliding particles. Just it's interesting, but maybe throughout this later on, I have some more examples that'll help people get the big picture that at least I think I do in my head. But this is interesting because according to Athony Patch's 600 cell tetrahedron model works for all planetary objects as well as the universe itself. Hexagon is a component of this, formed of tetrahedrons in both the gravitational as well as the electric models of the universe. Synchrotron energies are produced by particles, protons, accelerating as they pass through an electrical field, also producing magnetic lines, bands of force around the particle pathways. These northern poles exhibit particles undergoing acceleration, same as within the LHC. Holding to the electrical model, you are seeing electric plasma currents in motion. And he says, I would expect the same at the northern poles of less than solid spheres throughout the universe. So that was a big statement.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's quite a mouthful there.
Yeah.
See,
this is
in the automotive world right there. That's your transmission. That's where you see. Anthony pointed out how on the macroscopic level, as you go out in the universe and you go down to microscopic, you have a replay of the same shapes, but just different uses. So go ahead, Chris. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. This is Sergio Bertolucci, director of research and at Cern, and he says LHC is a big time machine. It brings us to a 1/10 of a billionth of a second after the Big Bang. This is a picture of reconstructing the collision measuring energy, and we're going to talk a little bit more about measuring energy. It's really fascinating how they measure the particles.
Isn't that interesting how it's the upside down pyramid? And we had talked about the pyramids that are upside down. The ones, when Anthony was talking about pyramids, the ones that are above ground, and then you have the ones that are buried below ground, which are upside down, which are collectors. And this is interesting. You know, this has just made me think of the buried ones.
Yeah. I remember us discussing that. So one of the biggest mysteries is what happened to the primordial antimatter. So we got dark matter, we got antimatter, and I have a video below of them explaining, the scientists explaining the difference with that. But here's antimatter and alienation, because that's what they do. They cannot come together. So here's a picture of quantum entanglement. And here, this is a really interesting pictures here. You see the laser beam going through the center. And you see the photons, the entangled photons here. And this is a crystal, vertical polarized photons. But this here made me think of this obelisk in the center. You see these two circles here, and the beam going through the middle?
Yeah, and that's what they do at the Washington Monument. That red line coming out there, if you look at the very end of it, is the Washington Monument, and in the middle of these two circles. That if you look down from the top of the Washington Monument, you will see this design of the monument in the middle of the Vesica Pisces, which is the eye in the middle. And right where the pupil will come out is where this obelisk is standing. So interesting that the eye represents the Vesica Pisces design in the middle, represents what Chris is talking here about the quantum entanglement. Definitely makes you want to, brings up all kinds of questions.
This example of quantum entanglement, and when I changed computers this morning, I didn't get some of the photos on here, but one of them was the Washington Monument next to this. This is the Washington Monument. It is.
Exactly.
This is the Kabbalah tree, and this is the phallus of Osiris. This obelisk is at the Washington Monument, and this picture, you have to look it up. It's exactly like this with the two circles, and if you see this center here, you see this in a lot of pagan churches.
Right.
And
this is also Vesica Pisces. That's what I was saying. That term, that center part, they call I believe it's Vesica Pisces.
Yeah, or in India, I guess they have the yoni, the dark. Yeah. That's what they call the dark matter in the center.
We're dark
and Osiris.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. The Osiris is the one who represents that. He also represents Dionysus, Ursa Major, and King Tut. They all represent on King Tut's in his tomb, and he had a cloth on top of it, and this is how he looked. And he had A looks a lot like Akhenaten. He looks just like him. And A was the top military person for Akhenaten. It's funny because he was, I don't have the family tree right in front of me, but it's very interesting, the bloodline and how they all intermarried with each other during that time. This is the Ogdode that we talked about before that represents this too. With the 8, there's 4 above and 4 below. We've talked about. I just wanted to show that briefly. I know that we've talked about that before, and some people that are listening today might not get that or seen the shows that we've done on that. But this is the pyramid again, upside down, and you see the orbit around. You see the swirl here.
Do you notice that they love to use this stair shot in movies? If you look down to the stairs going down in a spiral, they love this shot. And if you think about the movies, they love to show this. And what Chris is showing you, that they have the pyramid in the middle of this swirl, so it definitely, you got the little ziggurat step pyramid in there to 3 levels, and it's a lot of interesting designs all in that swirl.
Yeah, it's like, trying trying to think about what I was going to say.
I just tried.
Oh no, I got it now. It's the orbiting. I lost my word, but the orbiting, like everything orbits around something. Everything does,
Right.
and so that's kind of like the picture. But you know, in my opinion, from my research, and I'm still learning and researching about quantum entanglement and galaxies and stuff like that. I think that antimatter possibly might come from galaxies orbiting. And this is another picture that we did before too, diagramming the 8, you know, with Ra being the sun and Osiris and Isis and Thoth and in ancient Egypt with the pyramids. And quantum entanglement is a lot like that because there's energy in the center of the pyramid. This is a quantum channel that goes out to this degree. And so I find that quite interesting with how they have these orbits here. But this is quantum entanglement when two objects connect with each other like electromagnetically, like a force. They connect with each other and one spins one way and one spins the other way.
That was one of the concepts that what we're showing on the bottom there of the belief in the planet X on the other side of the veil reacting. You remember when they're talking about opening up vortexes and the planet's coming through, that the movements of cycles affect other objects on the other side of that veil. And so this was some of this is some more of the sci-fi side of things, but it's based off the quantum entanglement concept of the seen and unseen, or the matter and the antimatter.
Yeah, like you know, even one particle that's a million miles away can connect to another particle
right.
Through that energy, and and one might be in another time. So that there goes with your
this
time
is the
travel.
whole dimensional thing. Yeah, this is the connecting through dimensions is actually it's very trippy kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, you see, this is a model that I found with the quantum channeling, and this is the Giza pyramid. So it's kind of like, you know, the same thing here with, this is Khufu's pyramid, and these are the shafts that go to Sirius and Tarwat and the dragon, mother dragon or whatever. But this is Sirius, and this is, I guess this, in ancient history, this was where, anyway, there's just 2 shafts here.
And the main thing to get from the pyramid concept, I think that we got across very clearly, is that Cern is the modern day pyramid without the outer triangle. It's the inner workings of this without that outer triangle. And so, Joseph Farrell talks about the direct energy weapon of the Giza Death Star, and we talked about the direct energy weapon from the Brookhaven Institute that seemed to be connected with the 9/11 events. It's all, we can't prove it, but there's alignments that are there. And, so you're looking at ancient technology, as Anthony said, in a modern package, which is CERN.
Yeah, that's true. That's after all the research that he's done and I've done. I think that's kind of what he sees too, is that there's the energy in the center, and just like the tree of the consciousness is in the center, and then you have the energy and the beam, and we showed the quantum entanglement with the Washington Monument, and then
plus, as you showed in the slide above 46 where it was spiraling, that's the circular pattern coming up the middle of this rectangle pyramid. That right there, you can see where it's spiraling, and you see the rectangles as you go to the point. That's the energy circulating in the pyramid, in the spiral being directed to a point, which is your direct energy weapon aspect, or bringing it to the point. So our show showed the fire in the middle was a little bit below that, and then once it connected, then it would project the beam up through the capstone of the pyramid. So ancient technology built off this swirl, built off these rectangles, gathering energy from below, fire in the middle, out through the capstone. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, and speaking of that, you know, the prophetic dimensions of the Great Pyramid and its relationship to the Temple of Jerusalem is connected with each other, and that's it's 5776 inches in September, and we're not sure what's going to happen in September, but there's a lot of mind control stuff going on about that day. But that day, the Jesuits call the Year of Light. The Pope is going to address Congress. It is the year in the Jewish calendar is 5776. It's 2016 in September, and I'll put a link below to show how this ties to Solomon's Temple as well.
You know. Okay. Yeah. I was trying to think if there was a connection between the 233 thing that you were seeing and the 923, and the way that they write it is 23/9, and 3 is, 9 is 3 cubed. And I was trying to think if that was the skull and bones thing, but I think I'm off by a number. But I was trying to see why they're choosing 923 or 924 as their designated days for the New World Order's kickoff days. That seems to be their days. That's when, that's what Chris and I are kind of talking about, is that there's lots of stuff going on in September, but most of it seems to be being scripted by the New World Order.
Yeah. Well, September also is Septum in the ancient calendar, and it shows that there's 7 planets tied to that too. So there's a lot of connections with September and those numbers too, for sure. This is another.
Oh, okay.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just remembering back to the Giza Plateau. It always bugs me because this is New York City, right where the One World Freedom Tower is. If you look at the layout of that plaza now, where they have the One World Freedom Tower and stuff, it's the Giza Plateau, the way it's laid out now. So they replicated it, there, which is interesting. I mean, I don't know what the alignment is with Egypt, or what diagonal alignments, or, opposite. You know how David Flynn did his thing with Mount Hermon connected to Roswell on the 33rd degree parallel. I wonder if New York City right there at that point is connected to some other major point. I'm not good enough with the math like some of the other guys are, but as being like the antimatter or the mirror of the Giza Plateau.
Yeah, I actually found some maps that the Cern, how do you say it, those mountains?
Which one?
Where Esau lived.
Oh, yeah, I'm not familiar with those.
There's a star map that if you lay it right on top of the mountains where those mountains are, and it exactly fits the stars above in the map. And then if you put star maps against the world, you'll see it's all mapped out, right. As above, so below.
That's true. That's definitely true.
And this is another example of synchronicity. This is Pluto and Charon or Charon. It's Charon in English system, showing that Pluto orbits a point outside itself. Also visible is a double mutual tidal locking between the two bodies. Pluto spins on its side like Uranus does, which is quite interesting. But Pluto's also in mythology is known as Hell, Hades, where Osiris, when he died, when his brother Set cut him up and he died, he went to the underworld and rose in Hades, and so that's what that in mythology says. It's interesting because Charon, the ferryman who ferried the dead to the underworld, in ancient history, people really put these coins in their dead one's mouth. And so that once deceased, Shade reached Hades, he or she would be able to pay Charon for the passage across the river. Styx or Charon. And so the moons of Pluto, we've talked about Pluto before, and its connection to Saturn, and it has a connection to Neptune, but its moons are like satellites, you know, so just like Saturn has moons and they're like satellites. And but anyway, the legend had it that those without enough wealth or whose friends refused to follow proper burial rites were forced to wander the banks of the river for 100 years. So that's interesting because we know in ancient Egypt, these were gods of the dead. And so Osiris was the ruler of the underworld, which is Hades in mythology. And so,
I think you also see that final line down there is where they probably got the idea of purgatory from.
Oh, yeah.
That wandering in between kind of a thing. It's like in between hell and heaven kind of a deal.
Well, I got a verse for that later.
Okay.
So this is Pluto's moon Nyx, and you can get into a lot of mythology with their connections with gods and goddesses of moons and planets and history and stuff like that they identified it with, because actually they worship the celestial bodies as gods. This is a Charon genius, a genius of spiders, which is a scorpion without a tail. I thought that was interesting because Serket in Egypt, she has a scorpion on her head, and then Cain represents the scorpion as the scorpion king. Throughout my studies, I have a blog if you want to look it up. It's called the Scorpion King Cain. This is interesting because Pluto takes 248 years to orbit the sun. San Andreas fault line lies dormant for periods of 243 years on average, before unleashing monstrous tremors. The Pacific Northwest is 72 years overdue for the next quake, which is expected to be between 8 and 9.2 in magnitude.
I think August, didn't we originally were looking at August for the planet of the crossing to come across the ecliptic or something? That Pluto would come across a plane or something, and that is this 248-year cycle kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how it is now, but or where it's going to line up with the sun, because I know the sun has a lot of things to do with quantum entanglement and nuclear energy, and so it's like time, you know, once you have the autumn equinox, there is less time for a certain energy to reach another energy during cycles and stuff. And so in September, there's going to be the autumn equinox. So that's another interesting thing, because we've said it before, you know, Cern is going to rev up the collider again. Anthony says that is going to be a marking in history because it is going to be 13 TeVs. It's going to be more powerful than 100,000 suns.
Yeah,
and so this is going to be a ton of energy. Nostradamus said that, you know, he could be wrong, but he said Geneva is going to be blown off the map at some point. He's been right about some things, you know, and who knows, because all of his history is not in order. So it's very confusing. And so, you know, who knows, but
I wonder if this has anything to do with climate chaos that they keep talking about. 100,000 times the sun, and it just happens at that time where they're talking about climate chaos. And I'm going, yeah, and you guys are the ones doing it.
Yeah, that's that 500 days that the French Prime Minister was talking about with John Kerry, and they were talking about that. But yeah, so I mean, there are things that happen, and they know. That's why all presidents have had astrologers, mediums, and they have had remote viewers, and all these people try to help them with financial situations, and all the gods and goddesses are tied into fertility and corn and wheat and agriculture and financial gain or loss. And we know that we're looking at like the Chinese market just crashed, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's doing something, and it definitely it's another one of these false markets. And of course, the United States is all excited today as of this taping because they were up like 300 points with the futures today. But they, one day they're depressed and and then the next day they're happy. But yeah, you can see that they're stepping us down economically to a crash at some point. And that's, some people think it's coming in September, but we got lots of things going on in September. We'll just see how it plays out.
Yeah. This was just an example of, the past and the present and hyperspace, and then the energy.
And that's your headphones. That's your headphones.
Yeah, you just turn them around, and right in the center it goes your pineal gland.
There's one ear on each side and the little loop over your head.
Here's your friend Tim. Did he come back in time to visit you yet?
Oh no, old Albert. No, he hasn't come to visit me yet. From Back to the Future with Albert Einstein.
Yeah, here's his E equals MC, and this is energy measured in joules, and this is M, mass measured in kilograms, C, speed of light. That's another measurement that's all around the world, is 186,000 miles, which is I believe the orbit of the sun. And so if a particle is not moving, its total energy is E equals MC.
I think Anthony was reworking this formula for the strangelets when we were talking about the strangelets. I think he moved the E over C square equals M. And, that was the whole thing about terraforming, in the sense of strangelets growing at the core and into a neutron star type of thing. So I just wanted to throw that in. Go right ahead.
Yeah, if it's moving, then E2 equals MC2, 2 plus PC over 2, where P is the momentum and C is the speed of light. It's just his interesting equation there. I think Bart Simpson had he was doing it too.
Oh, there's our Iron Man. You see your nuclear explosion there has our Iron Man toroidal donut formed in the middle there.
Well, actually, I didn't put all the calculations in here. You can look up the calculations of how this is calculated. But a human can have approximately 88,403 times more explosive energy in them than a bomb that destroyed an entire city. So that's just kind of to help you wrap your mind around how much energy we have. It doesn't feel like we have that much energy, does it, Tim?
Well, it makes sense as far as the Matrix using us as batteries.
Yeah.
From the Matrix movies, they see us as the human energy systems or batteries, the fuel. And that's what these occult rituals look like. They're gathering the energy from big populations, the negative energy. And so interesting. It makes you think, though, if you could tie in this energy of an individual with consciousness and with low emotions, like, depression, sorrow, all these really heavy, low frequencies. And maybe this is where we get the ELFs, the extremely low frequency waves, because very depressed, sorrowful type of emotion is very low energy, slow moving waves, where happy and all that is a much higher, kind of a frequency. So maybe we just found the connection between the energy of a human, extremely low frequencies, and what the Illuminati does to harness it.
Yeah, that's a big rabbit hole we could talk about there.
Oh yeah, that's a few books probably.
Yeah. You know, we were talking earlier about how everything orbits everything. And so if you think about, let me show you this picture first. The energy, this is the E equals MC. So this is the energy, the speed of light, and the mass. And this is like the atom. See?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a little tiny one. We can't see it, right? Can't see it. But here is like a huge example of it here that's more busy, but it's kind of the same thing. These are stars orbiting in the Milky Way.
Mm-hmm.
They're orbiting the center of the Milky Way, which there's a big black hole in. And this is the Milky Way that the Tarwar boat, it used to ride through the Milky Way. And anyway, that was their picture that they would do. They would do it through the March, the spring, and the autumn equinox, which is Cern is going to start up around the same time that they would be doing this celestial boat of Ra. And this is just a funny picture I put in here. This is some beer if you want to order it. Just kidding, but this is some antimatter single malt liquor beer.
Wow.
It's funny because they just made one. They just made one with the Pope on it.
Well, it was made by the Blue Hills, so of course that's your blue bloods, and you know, they're into antimatter. So
Yeah, in ancient history, there's some real interesting story about wheat and beer and gods and goddesses and stuff like that. But we can't get into that today. But here's this picture of everything orbits everything in time. So I was going to put some of this stuff in here because I did tie some things that are really interesting and mind-blowing together. And so Akhenaten saw himself as Mars, and he worshiped Aten. And if you don't know the story of the history of the worship of Saturn and Jupiter, the Ptah, the bloodline of Tubal-Cain, which is Jupiter, the resurrected Saturn, then you might want to look at that to kind of understand this. But Mercury represents Aten, and that's what he worshipped. And supposedly, in ancient history, there's some writings that Mercury was the iron core of Mars that came out, and it was illuminated back then, and that is what he worshipped. And so there was a change in the celestial bodies, and so that is another story about how they went back to the same worship of Amun, and so it's kind of confusing, but this has to do with the way that they believed. I do think that there's something connected with all of this today because of, so if you look at the Amarna period, this is the Armana period, that's Akhenaten, and worshiping Mercury. And he wears the blue hat because he sees himself as the god of war, which is Mars. This is Akhenaten, the real artifact of Akhenaten. He does not look like Obama, but he is made for some reason for us to see him to look that way. I don't know why, but he is.
I think what it is that to associate the plagues of Egypt, the idolatry of Egypt, I think I've come to the conclusion that he is the hardened heart leader of a country that has rebelled against God and has imposed witchcraft and will not repent. And so it's the judgment of Egypt on Mystery Babylon, which is the United States. And I think Obama, and I've come to the conclusion that they are running off the Balaam program. And the Balaam program is that the way that you get God to curse a people is you get those people to break God's rules. And Obama is the one that's been sitting here doing the Salinsky Balaam directive, basically, which is every law in the Bible that you can break as king or as a leader of a country, the curses come down on that country. And so I think this is a choreographed destruction of the United States as the new Atlantis from Bacon, as from this Kabbalists who are trying to mirror the Book of Revelation events, creating us as Mystery Babylon, and then having leadership, Freemasons, and of the occult in Washington, the most occult city that you got out there, sitting here bringing down, basically following Balaam's plan, which is, you want God to judge those people by having them break God's law. So that's what I think these people represent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you just think that the Egyptian obelisk that we just talked about with the quantum entanglement picture is the exact same thing as in front of, Washington, at the Washington Monument.
Mm-hmm. Plus in Vatican City, and and the one from Vatican City was from Heliopolis in ancient Egypt. So, yeah,
that was where the sun worship was. And actually, if you look at the Nile River and you look how it looks like a flower, like a lotus flower, in the very center before the bloom, that is where Heliopolis is. And it translates because that was where the Saturn worship was a long time ago. And then King Tut actually ruled over that.
We are dealing with the Saturn cult as a whole. This is what when we're talking about the Golden Age, we're talking about the Saturn cult. We're talking about the gap theory, the area between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. We're talking pre-Adamic race. We're talking about the ancient glyphs that show a different sky that the Thunderbolts Project was interested in. And that's how this ancient sky is what these people, the history of where this worship of Saturn comes from. And it's interesting. It is absolutely fascinating that Lucifer, Saturn, is the Saturnos, is the one that is tied to time now. And time was a construct that was for this period of time of where death entered the world for this time. He's tied to this timeline now. And it's trying to wrap your head around pre-Adamic sky, fallen angels, the fall, angels leaving their first estate, angels as planets, possibly, when the planets fell from their estate. You can get into some very interesting, wild kind of trying to make sense of things. But you're talking, a massive amount of time back in the pre-Adamic time period.
Yeah, well, just think about this. If you haven't studied all this, the Ogdode with the 8 deities are after the flood. They're not before, they are after. So this is like a resurrection of Saturn. And that's something I studied very deeply, and I still, do. And just to try to understand all of the ancient history and how it has to do with today and who's who and what happened during the Exodus and all of those things. Hopefully I can get an ebook series out on those things. But
yeah, if we don't get shut down in September with a change of whatever, if the world changes to where things don't operate as normally. But if it doesn't, where we'll proceed with trying to get out smaller, topics, focus on these things, such as the Ogdod and the Ennead. And, I think we see that in the Book of Revelation. We see that the frogs coming out of their mouth, and that's part of the Ennead. And, Chris has followed that all up. So it's interesting that we were actually able to, through the research he did on this area, see the frog spirits and stuff. So I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, and the anti-gravity and all that. That's super interesting stuff there. And it's tied to gold and all of that. So, and then gold in the Bible, it means mark or stain. It's so I do believe that the mark of the beast does have something to do with gold and technology.
Well, that's that third strand DNA that Anthony was talking about. That third strand was a golden fiber, for so there's your gold and the mark of the beast, the third strand DNA. You know, so
yeah, and it's tied to the elixir of life. I actually
Mm-hmm.
have an incredible
Cool.
information on that I've worked on too. But
we'll have to do that one later.
yeah, it'll be really cool. This is Hatshepsut and this is Akhenaten. They sometimes when you look this up, there will be people that think that she is Akhenaten for some reason. It's very confusing, but I just wanted to show this. This is Akhenaten. He doesn't look like Obama, does he?
No.
This is a statue in a museum of Akhenaten right here on the right. And nowhere does he look like Obama in that. Here he is again. And this is Hatshepsut and this is Akhenaten. And they do look quite a bit alike. And this hat here is the blue war hat that he wears. And it's interesting because the United Nations, they also wear blue hats. But what I was going to get into too about the Amarna period is that this is a hieroglyph from the Amarna period. It's the most mysterious period in history. It's the most covered up period in history of Egypt. You won't find everything on it to try to put all the pieces together, but I've studied it somewhat, and I looked up the word. I do that a lot. Look up words, translate them to see what they mean. And Amarna in Russian means the cause, which I find interesting. And I have another synchronicity story that I want to put out here with Enter the Stars and his video that he did. But so that's just interesting. And when I translated the word Amarna, here it comes out to Zakaz, Polyego, Zasada. I can't really say this, but when I translated in English, Amarna, and into Russian, and into English is Pauli exclusion principle, the principle of quantum mechanics. And it just blew me away. And then something else blew me away after that, because Zakaz, Polyego, and I looked it up, and here is the picture that they show in Russian. They have an English version too, but they don't show this picture in the English version. And in the Russian version, they have the H+, which is the DNA that we've talked about in depthly about. And then here is the trident, and here's the energy here. And I was just saying to him that Amarna translates to Zakaz, and Zakaz in Amarna translates to this, Zakaz, Polyego, and I couldn't say that in Russian. And in English, when I translated it, it's Pauli exclusion principle, the principle of quantum mechanics, and that just blew me away right there.
Pauli exclusion principle.
Yeah, this is Wolfgang Pauli, who did work with Carl Jung.
Oh, okay. So he did do some work with Jung? Oh,
yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know they were connected.
Yeah, Carl Jung, he actually recorded Pauli's dreams, and they did experiments. And this is interesting because Egyptians, they had people that recorded dreams. That's what they lived for, and then in the Bible, doesn't it talk about Daniel translating dreams?
Yeah, there's I think there's at least 50 dreams in the Bible that are very clear on how God talked to different people about it. There's a lot of dreams in the Bible.
Yeah, interesting that it has to do with the mind and the consciousness. But to get this, Tim, so then I went to look up this word that I translated here. I'm like, okay, Amarna translates to this. So what is it? And I look it up, and I was fascinated. I was like, here's the H+, which
that's a
represents that's the transhumanism logo, and it also represents the DNA of Ptah that we've discussed before, and we've translated that so in-depthly. And
we got the trident for the Ukraine, and this is over there. You got transhumanism in the Ukraine. Boy.
And Cali too, and I do believe that was another picture that it got lost, but oh no, did it? No, here it is. Cali, this is her logo here. Saturn and the trident.
I gotcha. That's really neat. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so she's tied to the death and the rebirth, and so is the planet Pluto with the fire and ice and the death and rebirth and the phoenix. But this was her symbol there. But getting back to this, I got to tell you what happened to him, because this was so interesting that, you know, we translated this stuff here. This is tied to the quantum entanglement and Synchrotron, this right here. And so I was watching videos online one day, and I saw this on Enter the Stars, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Because this has the same symbols, the H, and he overlaid this. You got to watch his video below. Here's his logo here. You can look him up and subscribe to him on YouTube. But this, you know, his title is Bombshell, 3 planes on 9/11 album map point to 9/11 airports. Take Manhattan Part 2. So this is 1988, Take Manhattan. And everything that's tied to this is interesting here. See, here's a picture with the H and the trident, and he's wearing money here, which is all tied together, which is just super interesting. But this,
so they're showing the head though, like a tuning fork, almost like a receiver, like the little squiggly line you were showing coming from it's almost like it's coming into the fork, being received.
Yeah.
And the transhumanism aspect, go ahead. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, you know, I was thinking, okay, he overlaid this on New York City, and he shows that the 3 planes on this, and then you have this flag here. I do believe it's the Egyptian colors. And then you have Shamash and the sun on the front, which is, you know, they worship the sun god, whoever it's going to be, Set or Horus, Ra, you know. And so you have these 3 planes that go to the Twin Towers here. When you overlay this on the map, and you'll have to watch this video to see it. But then when you look at the lyrics, I didn't post them here, but you can go look up the lyrics to this album. Jennifer Warnes is the person that is tied to this, and then Cohen. It's the weirdest thing and the weirdest lyrics. And then the other thing that I didn't get to post here was, if you look up Pink Floyd and I forgot the word to it. I will have to post a link to this, but it shows Pink Floyd and the words of let me see if I can look it up, but it has to do with quantum entanglement, and it shows people with heads of planets on their head on the album.
Oh, is it? Well, you did show me the one with the what was it? The cosmic. You showed me that one video about the Golden Age, and it was the cosmic tour or something like that we had, and they had their heads on the Saturn, with the Saturn circle around their necks or whatever. You remember that one, the Golden Age tour, the galactic tour? That was pretty much, I was just watching that, and I was just going, well, they're pretty much showing the cult sitting here singing about their Golden Age. That's it, actually.
Okay, no.
Not that one?
No, this one is spooky action at a distance. This is a term that that Albert Einstein used.
That would be beyond the veil stuff then, that like something connected on this over here affects something way over there.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry I didn't get the picture on here, but it's 2 women, and one of them has the head of an Earth, and the other one has a star nebula head on their head, and that's what their head is. And then it says Pink Floyd, spooky action at a distance. And spooky action at a distance means quantum entanglement. This is the way that Albert Einstein would say it sometimes. Yeah,
that's true. This is pretty interesting, though. The first we take Manhattan thing, it didn't hit me, but it's so 9/11 that Jennifer Warnes, first we take Manhattan.
Yeah.
So there's your 9/11 event.
And then the song goes on to say, and then we take Berlin.
Wow. So Berlin. Okay. Well, it makes sense. They got the one religion thing that they built over there? Just the something of one, the house of one or something like that. You remember when they have so many weird things there. I mean, they got the Pergamum, the altar of Pergamum still there in Berlin, and then they got the House of One.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
got all that occult garbage over there that started the few wars.
Yeah, on this track of Pink Floyd, Spooky, whatever it was Spooky Action at a Distance.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the songs is Fat Old Sun,
That sounds like
Astronomy,
Saturn or Jupiter. Probably
yeah, Atom Heart Mother, The
wow.
Embryo, Green is
Jeez.
the Color.
Oh boy.
And then it
Now, when they
says,
use green, are they talking about Osiris, or is that the
I'm
Osiris color?
sure,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Hmm.
And then also Cernunnos is the same as Osiris. He's the
I
green
forgot
man.
that the Green Man, yeah, the famous Green Man. I remember. What was his name? The 007 James Bond. Not Roger Moore. The other one. Shane O'Connor. He played the Green Man. I remember watching that movie, going, "What is this about? Some kind of British weird mythology that I have no idea about." But he played the Green Man. I remember that. Sean O'Connery. That's it.
Yeah, I was going to say too that this right here with this poly theory or whatever, this
Mm-hmm.
also ties into the Merovingian bloodlines and sorcery too. We can't get into all that, but
Yeah.
oh yeah. So Polly, here it is about him. He had a severe breakdown. He consulted Carl Jung,
Mm-hmm.
and who interpreted his dreams. More than 400 of his dreams are documented in a book called Psychology and Alchemy.
Boy. Yeah.
Yeah, things we don't know, so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Collective unconsciousness, a term coined by Carl Jung, refers to structures of the unconscious mind which are shared among beings of the same species. According to Jung, the human collective unconsciousness is populated by instincts and by archetypes, universal symbols such as the Great Mother, the
Mm-hmm.
wise old man, the
Mm-hmm.
shadow, the tower, the water, the tree of life, and many more.
Yeah, he's all about archetypes, and the New Age loves archetypes.
Jung diagnoses the spiritual laziness of the West in not truly embracing the Christian myth as an inner journey of transformation. Alchemy, he argues, is a Western yoga, which was designed to facilitate this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and people don't know Jung why he got so Eastern is because he was involved with the I Ching and the Book of Change from the Taoist traditions. And if people would just look that he drew on the West and the East, and Freud didn't like anything to deal with spirituality necessarily. He wanted to. Well, Freud wasn't, to me, Freud was a fraud when you look at his whole background and stuff like that. But, Jung was trying to integrate a spirituality with psychology. And that's why he came up with Jungian psychology, which addressed spirit. And but his is Eastern traditions.
Yeah. Alchemy generally derives from the Old French alchemy, from the Arabic alchemia, the art of transformation. And alchemy, I had an alchemy picture here with the tetrahedrons on it, but alchemy from Arabic, the chemia, Egyptians, alchemy, the science of being. According to the ancient Egyptians, spirit and matter are two expressions of the same principle pronounced neteru. In Egyptian and natura, or nature in later tongues, according to Egyptian alchemy, everything has a spirit to it, and every spirit has some form of body. The profound attainments of the Egyptians were created by people who knew the spirits within element of matter and could talk them into revealing their secrets to mankind. Okay, so we're talking about Neteru, which the Egyptians believed that these were gods of nature that they connected with from the phenomenon of synchrotron. So if you think about synchronicity that's way out in space, beyond our reach. These are things that they say that they connected to, spirit beings, which they called Neteru, which in the Bible translates to, I guess that says Phusis, which is nature. So if you look up Neteru or Neter in the Bible, this is what's going to come up. And it's interesting because you can actually connect that word to nature in the Bible. And, it's also interesting too, because, people go, oh, well, Eve ate an apple. It was a piece of fruit. And they just think in our terms, in our mind today, in today's world and in English, that the word is a piece of fruit when it doesn't mean that. It's a spiritual word that means that, like spirits, like the fruit of the spirit is love, patience, kindness. Fruit doesn't mean a fruit off of a tree. It means something else, something far more bigger than that. Like, the tree of consciousness in the Bible, to me, means a tree of DNA. The DNA tree.
Right. And when I look back, now that I look all the way back, and I know that, people still have issues with the Cain and Abel thing, and Cain not being in Adam's, in his genealogy. I look at it all, ever since the fallen angels were involved in creation of any type, they're always fooling around with messing up the DNA. Messing up DNA. It's just like they're always trying to cloud the waters. They're always trying to mix one kind with another kind. They're trying to destroy God's creation by crossing everything. And so the whole history is DNA related.
Yeah, that's why you see goddesses with lion heads, and, you look at Samael in the garden, he's the one who fell. He was a cherubim, and he had 4 faces, an ox, a lion, an eagle, and a man. And those things are all connected to hybrids in mythology. And
yeah, but if you look at the laws given to man was that your kind is to mate with the same kind. You're not supposed to mix the kinds. You're not supposed to mix. And all the angels ever do is mix up everything, because this is a way of rejecting God's creation. And, so man is not man. What they're doing with transhumanism is a reflection of Lucifer as creator, which is always mixing everything.
Yeah. This is, I had this better organized before I switched computers, but this is CERN recreating the Big Bang, and this is the center right here. This is where Anthony said it would happen, and this is where the synchrotron is. So just think about that. These synchrotrons are all over the world now, but I think they're building one in Africa and now another one in China. But CERN has the biggest one. They have the most technology, and they have the biggest synchrotron there. So I just added a couple of pictures for the imagination. There's things around us that we cannot see. There's energy always around us that we cannot see. And God's holy angels are always around us all the time. And here's another one. This is Tim leaving us one day in space. I'm just kidding. But this is just a wormhole, just to keep.
Oh, just might as well, you step into immortality. That's what I like about the discussions of the speed of light. Why can't they ever reach the speed of light when they do these experiments? Because the speed of light is immortality. There is no degenerative anything at that level. It's a permanent existence. And so everything's always approaching the speed of light is what they're trying to do, but they can't accomplish the speed of light. So yeah, wormholes are interesting. I mean, all this stuff is interesting. We are learning everything that was hid from us. Some of the awakening process Chris and I have talked about has been they are intentionally trying to wake up a large majority of people, but they're trying to misguide them into wrong thinking, wrong waking up. There's your headset again with the
That's
going right
Anthony's
through the brain.
toroidal field.
Yeah, the toroidal field right there in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah,
Really
this
cool.
is just, this is just a trick of the mind. This is what they want to do, is they want to trick people's mind. I mean, Satan, when, the Antichrist comes, he has to have some type of plan to come. It's always going to be the opposite of the true holy God, which is, something beyond what we can ever imagine, being, forever alive in eternity in heaven, versus the trick of the Antichrist when he comes and he wants to give us the world, and he wants to make us as gods, as, and one thought that I had through my mind that I think about, that I just wanted to share, is that sometimes I think about, well, what about the people who've already died? What about them? And how come we're in the time when we're in the end times of the tribulation and they're not? This is so different, because some people have lived their wonderful lives and they haven't been in the situation that we're in now. But you know what? We don't understand that, because I think of it this way. What if we lived in like the multiverse scenario, the multiverse theory? And what if time is alive in every situation right now? Like, people are still living back then. People are still going to be living in the future. There's past, present, and future. And it's all going on at the same time. And so that's just a thought that I had. And I think about that with the quantum entanglement. I know that it's not of God for these people to do it. And I know there's some good scientists out there. They they put, what's that word, Tim? Departmentalize people into categories, so they don't know what A and B and C all the way to Z is doing. And scientists will go to work and they'll learn. I'm not a scientist. I could not even understand what they understand. I don't have hands-on training to the quantum computer. But what they're doing with the quantum computer is they have already learned how to control the laws of nature. They were learning about the laws of nature, but now they're learning how to bend it, to control it.
Well, I think that's what's the most revealing about guys like physicists like Michio Kaku, the long-haired, the white-haired Japanese gentleman, the physicist. He's already spilled the beans on that. If you're going to be in this universe, the first level of a civilization that can go out into the stars is one that can control their weather and environment on the surface of the planet. So, when he was talking about that, I'm going, oh, okay. So you guys are going to go get in your Star Trek, and expand throughout space like Star Trek, and, and colonize the world, colonize, the universe. And so it's like, you guys really do think this way. And so all this HARP stuff, all this Project Bluebeam stuff, all this stuff with Cern, all these they do know how to manipulate. And, I've been commenting this past week, I've seen nothing but what they call some massive thunderstorms going through our area, but they have that spider web type lightning that's going across the skies. And here in Florida, you don't usually see that. You usually get the lightning bolts, but you don't get this spider webbing going off up in the upper atmosphere. It just looks like spider webs going off all that, and big booming, like, detonations of Thor's hammer just slamming down, and boom, just off in the distance, and just going on and on for hours. And I was just going, the colors are off. I'm seeing red rainbows at nighttime. I'm seeing such crazy skies, and it's been like five in this last month in a row. And I'm going, none of those are Florida skies, what I'm seeing. So I'm going, hey, are they terraforming? Are they strange? What's going on right now? They're getting ready for the climate chaos. Are the skies changing now? So.
I think they are. I think that there's evidence of that. And I was on a boat the other day, and I looked up at 6 o'clock, and there was a moon.
Yeah.
The moon was just right there, and I thought that is so weird. And
Yeah.
and then like you were describing with the thunder and all those big booms and stuff.
Real big booms. Yeah.
I
Big,
heard
big
it.
booms.
It sounded so weird. It sounded like war outside, and
Yeah, exactly. It
I
sounds
told
like
my daughter, I was like, I have never heard of anything like
Yep.
that ever.
Right. So I'm noticing that quite a bit this month, especially the past week. We're going into the end of August. So, the thing is to watch nightly for these big booming storms coming through. And then what kind of fireworks are we hearing? What kind of booming? What kind of spider webbing? Some people that don't know anything I'm talking about, they'll say, "Oh, that's heat thunder or heat lightning," or whatever. And I'd say, "Well, it's not typical for this part of the world." Yeah, it's not me being paranoid. It's just absolutely noticeable.
Yeah. Yeah. This, we talked about the United Nations, and we talked about Egypt, the blue hats, what they believe. And, interesting, we're talking about lightning, and Barak means lightning, and and electro, lightning has everything to do with Zeus, and he is known as Satan in the Bible. It does reveal that in Revelation about his throne.
Pergamum.
And so now we have the Pope. He's going to address the United Nations General Assembly in New York City. We've talked about New York. Enter the Stars showed a map of New York from before, which was quite interesting. And New York is on the $100 bill showing getting nuked, and which is interesting here. I mean, we have a lot of people just don't wake up, but I think more and more, people are waking up right now. I mean, why do you think the pyramid with the capstone and the all-seeing eye is on the dollar bill? And when you translate the words correctly, which they've scrubbed the computer so well, but I do have the correct translation of that it talks about the children of Dan and the tribe of Dan and the New World Order, which that is what it's all about. It's about the snake, the Namu. Tim and I are going to work on that with all the snake stuff with Namu and the bloodlines and Lucifer, which is going to be really interesting. But the Pope has never addressed Congress before. He's supposed to do that on the 24th. And then here he is going to New York City. And then there's the 70th anniversary of the United Nations that day. And I have, in a minute, I wanted to show you how the United Nations are tied to Lucifer, and that's how their foundation is formed from. So let's look at what the United Nations is about. Energy, Atomic Energy Agency, Aviation, International Labor, Maritime Organization, Telecommunication Union, UNESCO, Scientific Cultural,
UNESCO.
this Postal Union.
Yeah, my main point with the UN is that, just think of it this way. There's going to be 3 world wars fought for the UN, for the United Nations. The Luciferian UN. World War I was fought for them. World War II was fought for them. World War III is going to be fought for them. So just a simplistic way of looking at it.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I guess it was after World War II. You remember when Nikolai, I don't remember the exact year, but he built the death ray.
Yeah.
And when he tested the death ray, which is a beam, there was 500,000 acres that were wiped out. And he says he knows, and he was a brilliant guy. He said he knows without a doubt that the calculations when they were testing it out was incorrect. And if you look up Nikola Tesla's death ray, and then you'll see that was an interesting weapon that he made. Well, Cern is a weapon too. It's a nuclear weapon. And even Anthony Patch in his studies that they're creating these strangelets that build over time, that connect over this kind of, I want to say it in my mind, I could be wrong, like a Wi-Fi stream that is not connected to Saturn yet. But it's like a stream that's going to connect an electric energy that is going to open up a portal. And CERN, we can say with ease right now, from scientists that have come out also, and they have died, but they have said, and their papers are out there, that CERN is opening up a portal, and it's a gateway to hell. This is where the demons are going to come out from, and that's what it is. And so if we look at the United Nations and the wars that they built all of these weapons for, and, we have I think China's market is doing this because of the trade agreement that they partially signed. I know that when it's fully signed that China's going to lose billions of dollars every year. And so I think that that there is going to be an economic war, and I know there's a certain alignment with Mars and Regulus, and I think it's Jupiter, I'm not sure, but from what I remember, it's going to be over the pyramids. And so we have all of these things happening right now. We've never seen anything like this before in history, never. I mean, with all of these things, but the Lucifer Trust, it was a publishing house which prints and disseminates United Nations material. Lucifer Trust was factually established in 1922 as Lucifer Trust. It was used to be Lucifer's Trust by Alice Bailey as the publishing company to disseminate the books of Bailey and Madame Blavatsky and the
Theosophical,
I get ahead of myself, society. Due to public outage over the name of the publishing company, it was changed 1 year later to Lucis Trust. It is the devastating indictment of the New Age and the pagan nature of the United Nations.
Yeah. It goes from Blavatsky to Annie Besant to Alice Bailey. And then, of course, Alice Bailey. Oh, you're into the Alice Bailey stuff, so go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I'm just saying she wrote her book was The Externalization of the Hierarchy. And she's a channeler, for the United Nations. And I think it was Cutting Edge that had back in the late 90s, they have a statement that on a certain page, like in the 800s of it, it's a big book. It says that the United Nations will be justified to use atomic weapons against any nation that doesn't go along with the Age of Lucifer. And that's from Alice Bailey. in the externalization of the hierarchy, the peaceful United Nations with the blue hats, the God of War guys, the ones who have brought us 3 world wars that we will experience because of the United Nations. And the cult of the Saturn cult, that the Lucifer worshiping Saturn cult that runs the United Nations.
Yeah, well, this all is coming out. I mean, they're using many different, racism, the LGBT. They're using all of these tools to bring in one world religion and new world order. And this is just a trick. I mean, this like those visuals that I showed earlier, like this one. This is a trick of the mind. This is the trick of the mind, and they are going to be able to trick a lot of people into submitting to the new world order, and they're going to fight against Christians who love the Lord, because this is the way it is. They're going to fight. And this is what they're going to be trained to do through mind control. But, people that know Jesus Christ and know the true word of God and understand that this tribulation is coming, just like I said at the very beginning of this show, when Jesus said he has told us in advance, and that's paraphrasing there, but he did tell us, he's told us before it happens, so that way we will understand what is going to happen. Anyone that rejects Christ is the spirit of the Antichrist. This is Lucifer. This is one of their covers, Blavatsky. See, and they have Lucifer. This was before they changed it to Lucis Trust. The spiritual work of the United Nations of the liberation of humanity. And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, well, this is it's always bothered me about the Luciferians. They see God as this great, slave master that runs a plantation, and that Lucifer or Prometheus broke loose and wanted to liberate his creation from the slave master. And what does Lucifer, the great liberator, want to do? Well, he wants to enslave everybody under Luciferian philosophy. And if you don't agree with him, well, tough. And the Golden Age is all about pharaohs. The Golden Age is all about the gods and at the top and the peasant slave class working below. So what is that to do about being liberated? You know, there's nothing about liberation. It's pure slavery and drudgery. And this is what was the pre-Adamic world. You can see the old, talk about the old, you know, these angels or whatever, these deities in India and all this, were, you know, and in the Mayan world and all this, they had the people slaving away all over the place to provide for them, blood sacrifices, all kinds of stuff. And, you know, if you got them, if you weren't sacrificing enough, the gods got mad. And, you know, that's what we're dealing with. So it's an out and out direct lie that there's any, they want to be liberated from God, the creator God, so that they can become just as degenerate and immortal in the flesh as they want. Immortal degeneracy, basically. And that means anything goes. If they want to kill you, they can kill you. If they want to do any they want to violate all the laws of God because they wanted to make their own laws. But they're absolute. It's absolute slavery, and it's just why we got the Nazis coming back in America. You know, why do they say the homeland? The homeland. Every time I'm watching Fox, here in the homeland, I say, yeah, the fatherland. Yeah, we'll get our little goose stepping going over here in the fatherland with the homeland security. You know, the homeland security will hire Hitler to the Bushes and the Obama communistas. You know, and I'm going, this is disgusting. This is not America. America was built on freedom, independent thinking, not centralized everything where we have to have all believe the exact same thing. And if you're an enemy of the state, if you do not follow along with Arnold Schwarzenegger and friends, and that's exactly what's going on. You know, so I'm getting off on a rant.
It's like a psychology warfare, a psychological warfare.
Yeah,
you know, and that's what it is. I mean, they've used television from Project Paperclip and technology, entertainment. I mean, all the people, not all the people, but, you know, you see the symbology in the entertainment industry. I mean, no one can deny it anymore that they make the, you know, the phallus and the yoni, the 666 symbol, the eye, the all-seeing eye, and, you know, all of that stuff is out there. I mean, and then you look around the world and you see what's going on with Cern, and then you see what's going on with the presidency and Iran and all of these things. I mean, and then they use psychological warfare against people by the news, and then that's tied into alchemy. Yeah, and that alchemy,
it is.
Yeah, it's also tied into alchemy, and it's also tied into. I mean, we don't understand it because we aren't doing magic and, you know, using metals and time traveling and astral projection. And those are things that, you know, that people that aren't aware that they're really doing it for Satan, or people that are aware and they really are doing it for him, which is Lucifer. And people argue Lucifer isn't Satan. Well, yes, he is. And that's psychological warfare there too.
Yeah. When they show you the Luciferian and Satanism conflict in the movies and stuff like that, they're still on the same side. It's just the Hegelian dialectic of the occult world. Same thing with the Freemasons and their checkerboards. How many Shriner Hospital commercials have you seen in the last month about saving the kids, saving this and that? You know, and if you don't get money, it means you don't care. And it's like, oh, well, the Shiners are doing their white magic over here, and what are they doing for their black magic? That's my question. That's what I want to ask the Shrine. I said, where's your black boxes? What are you doing with the black boxes, Shrine? I see your white boxes on TV with the nice little kids. Where's your black boxes? You know, oh, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah. It's a complex thing. Yeah, this is verses. I have several verses here for before the end of the show here, and we can go back and reflect on some things if you want, Tim. But enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. Matthew 7:13.
If you're walking behind the Pope or Obama, you're on the wrong road.
Well, you can understand the narrow gate. I mean, we're all sinners. We all fall off the roads, and some are closer on the narrow path than others. And some get off the narrow path and go on the giant wide path, and they have to find their way back to the narrow path. But the narrow gate is through Jesus Christ. It is abiding in him and just being his servant and understanding who we are. We are not gods. We are human beings, and we are in a fleshly body. But the trick of the mind in the center of the garden, the trick of the mind in the center of the quantum entanglement, the beam of light that is the false Luciferian light, that is the trick of the mind that is going to get people in the end times to want to worship the beast of technology. The Bible says they're going to marvel after him. And, to be able to be, upgrade themselves as gods, or, like in the garden, Satan wanted them to know that they could be as gods and change their DNA, and that's what happened. And that's the DNA of the Freemasons. They worship Tubal Cain, which is Batal. Anyone can find that information. That's tied to Egypt. It's tied to that bloodline of Cain. And that's what they're doing right now to bring in the Antichrist with this DNA that, has to do with space and time. In Luke 23:43, Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, that today shalt thou be with me in paradise. And I think that's wonderful because, Jesus is God, and he told the man that believed in him, today you will be with me in paradise, which is a wonderful thing. And one verse that's pretty deep is Matthew 27:51. It said, At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split, and the tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. So I found that really interesting. They came out of the tombs after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many people. So the dead people rose when Jesus died on the cross, and they rose from their tomb, and they went out in the holy city and appeared to many people. Can you imagine seeing that, Tim?
Oh, yeah.
When Jesus is on the cross and these people come out of the grave, and they're going out throughout the city. But here on the cross, this is the day that all the people were able to rise to heaven and paradise with him. It says, you will be with me in paradise that day. And I think that's just amazing. Jesus, he died and he rose again. He doesn't have to die again. He's God. He is going to come back. We don't know when, but he is. And the people that want to become one with the universe, they are not going to be in heaven. And this is a destruction thing. It's a trick of Satan. From the very beginning, he was the trickster, and he still is. And so everyone has the choice to make, where they want their soul to go. And then in Matthew 10:22, it says, All men will hate you because of me, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. And we will stand firm to the end. Those people that are in Christ, you know why? Because there's people that are suffering, and they're going through a lot in life. And, the whole world, there's people are suffering because we live in the world and we live in the flesh. But Christ is never going to leave us. He's always going to be there with us to the end. Even the weakest people can be the strongest in Christ. And so he is going to be with us until the end, and we will stand firm with him, even in our weakness, even in our stress, even in pain. No matter what we're going through in our life, we will stand firm till the end, no matter what, because we have the Holy Spirit of God. We don't need spiritual bodies from planets. We don't need chakras or anything like that, or we don't need a astral projection or anything like that. All we need is Christ. Jesus tells us in the Bible, how to pray, how to be, how to live. And In John 15:18, it says, if the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. It's just another book. I like reading the book of John. Matthew 24:42. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. And that's my final verse. And Matthew, the book of the Matthew 24 chapter is really full of information on the end times, when the moon is turned to blood, I believe. The world is going to be dark, and it talks about, what's going to happen during that time. So the book of Matthew is a really good book to read if you're interested in reading about the coming tribulation there. But Tim, you have any closing thoughts on the information we presented today to everyone?
Well, it's a fabulous presentation as usual. Lots of good stuff, and plenty of tangential ideas and thoughts. We always stir up more questions than we answer, but that's fine. I mean, that's great. This is going into September, and I would just say, people just stay focused, keep your eyes on Jesus, keep praying, keep in the Word, with Jesus, when you're in Christ, you're protected. He protects you. As Christians, if you're not saved, you need to come to Christ before. You need to come to Christ now, seeing what's happening out there. And it's just, it's very important. You don't have much time left. So if September turns out to be this big boondoggle kind of thing where the world changes, as they're trying to scare everybody, with all these shows and timetables and times and dates and stuff like that. If you have Christ, you have Christ, and he'll get you through whatever you need to do. You'll do it with the strength of Jesus. If you don't have Christ, you should be terrified, because it's your mortality, your eternal destiny of your soul's at risk. And these people are playing for keeps. They will go through with their new world order plans. We just have to trust in the Holy Spirit, in the Scripture, and stay in prayer and stay connected with each other. Things on TV, things that are numbers and people telling you this date and that date, I wouldn't put much weight into any of that stuff. Just take everything with a grain of, a grain of salt, because the end times deceptions is for real, and it's going to be on a global scale. And so there's a lot of actors involved. And I always use the example. I thought for sure when they were doing Grid X2 last year that the grid was going to be taken out with an EMP, that they were foreshadowing all this stuff. And I was certain that was going to go down. And we're still in Jade Helm right now, which is the AI run mapping the human terrain thing right now. And they're trying to see how we react to stuff and what we're talking about. And, they do all their assessment and with their AI computers on everything going on, and to make threat assessments and all this other kind of stuff. So when does the Jade Helm stop? Is that 9/11? Did they put it on 9/11 or 9? Do you remember?
It's September the 15th, I think.
15th, okay. And Mr. Kadai was showing that it looks like they're giving some go signs for 9/11 in some of his videos. 9/23 and 9/24 as usual. Some strange stuff. So, the point with the dates is that we're just being watchful, but never bank on dates, because we don't know who is disinformation and who's not disinformation. And, I plan on the Holy Spirit will give us the discernment to wade through these things. And yeah, never give up on Jesus, because when you take the mark of the beast, when you take that what you need to buy and sell in the New World Order, then you're damned forever, and there's no way out of that. And so you're gonna have to make a decision at some point. you're gonna be forced into a decision at some point.
If the market crashes and the Trans-Pacific Partnership is fully signed like they want it to, and there's a one world trade, then you're gonna have to take a mark in order to buy or sell. They are going to force that technology that has come. They've already, like I said before, the laws of nature. They've already learned through the quantum computer how to manipulate that, how to control that. And so they've come a long way in their building for the Antichrist to come and all of that. I mean, I'm not saying that their plans might be shot and things might happen, and
well, they have lots of backup plans. My thing about it,
yeah,
we're told to expose the darkness. Okay, we're told to expose it. So when we expose it and they go to plan B or plan C and it didn't play out the way you exposed it, you exposed what you knew about. And if they want to go to plan B, C, D, whatever, that's fine. It's still their choice. They can keep sinning. It's just more that they have to deal with at the white throne judgment when they're standing in front of Jesus and they're going, oh, you guys, weren't you part of all these false flags? Yeah, well, you go over there, So these guys, they're heaping up damnation against themselves if they continue on. We're supposed to expose as much as we can expose, and that's our job. That's what I believe that Chris and I have been, basically our ministry style is built for, is exposing the stuff that you don't usually get to hear in the regular churches. So
yeah, and from a Christian point, or a follower of Christ point of view, when I woke up, I didn't know what to think or what to do or what to look at for or what to believe, and so I know that God woke me up for a reason, and I know that we're living in different times than we've ever lived before, and there's a lot of things that are going on right now. But one thing that I do know back then, before I woke up to the New World Order and after, is that Jesus is the same yesterday and today and forever, and he loves everybody, no matter what you've done, no matter what condition your life is in. He can change things. He is a powerful God, and if you go to him and you want to live for him and honor him, he died on the cross for you and shed his blood so that way you could be free from Satan and the world, and you can live.
I think she dropped off. Let me just check real quick. Well, we were wrapping up there. I'll just make sure that we just sign off at this point because we were wrapping up right at that time. And I want you all to have a great day. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.